me out, you buswhack.
Yes, I've been given another beautiful e-bike by the brand Cyrusher. This one is called the Ovia, and it's the follow-up model of the very first bike which I tested called the Komoda. Now, I had a few small issues with the Komoda, and apparently with the Ovia, these issues have all been solved. As per usual, you don't just take it out the box and ride it away. You've got to build it first.
Man, that box is massive. Oh. Hello. Oh, there she is, and you can see the color. Battleship grey, I like it. A few extra bits. We've got the saddle, as per usual. We've got a really cool looking front light. And we get a pump as well. Now, last time I criticised them that their tools kit, which is still spelt incorrectly, was absolutely terrible. Let's see if they have made improvements. I have got to hand it to them. Every part is perfect. There is not an imperfection on it. It is actually quite impressive. Complaint on the previous bike was that the pedals were too cheap and weak. And lo and behold, they have added metal inserts. So I won't know for sure until I ride it, but that does look promising. Oh yeah! So this is a new feature on this bike, this front light, and I think it looks the business. The saddle is on. I like this saddle because it's got an air vent for my gearbox. The tools kit has slightly let me down to fit this, same as the last bike. Also, there was no instructions on how to fit this mudguard, but it is luckily pretty straightforward. Right, bits left to do is just to wire up the electrics here, and it's really easy. Red goes to red, yellow goes to yellow.
Yes, I'm obviously going to de-restrict this bike, and for a second I thought it wasn't possible, but the wire is in there. They've just made it a little bit harder.
Now, there are a lot of you that have been in touch saying what you're doing is illegal, blah, 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 blah. And you guys might very well be right. But the bike comes with instructions on how to de-restrict it, and it also comes with an e-throttle. So we're going to stick that on there, and we'll ignore the law for now, and we'll just ride it on private land. Yeah? Sure. When I tested my first e-bike, the Komoda, my complaints were that the pedals were too weak, the battery cover scratched too easily, and the tools kit was rubbish. Well, I am happy to report that on the Ovia, the new pedals with the metal inserts are far superior, and they actually do the bike justice. They've also solved the scratchy battery cover by simply placing it on the underside of the frame. Genius! And yes, the tools kit was still pretty average, but you know what? I can live with it. The fully suspended frame on the Ovia looks even better than the Komoda. The new headlight gives it an almost off-road motorbike kind of look, which I really love. And of course, it's still as easy to use and as comfortable to ride as its predecessor. The performance figures are the same, which is great. So I say to you, Cyrusher, well done. You've made a very good bike even better. Welcome to another episode of Pete and his Bus. So guys, that was the Cyrusher Ovia bike. I really like this one. I have to be fair, liked all the ones they've sent me, but they're actually getting better.
This bike not only looks really cool, is super comfortable, it actually really works. They've taken out all the niggles. I really like it. It's a keeper. Now, my words and opinions are my own. I can say anything I want about these bikes. So, you know, if it wasn't any good, I would tell you. If you guys are interested in buying one or just checking out the website, check out cyrusher.co.uk. And if you want to buy one and get a bit of a discount, use my code, which is unsurprisingly Pete and his bus. Now, I'd also like to apologize for the fact that I've been off the air for such a long time, and I know I'm always like, yeah, I'm really busy, but no. I've been busy on another scale. Some of my family members have asked me what I look like because I haven't been around for so long. It's been total chaos and carnage. I've not even been able to film everything because there's been so much happening at once. And now all this is great, I'm not complaining. I did manage to capture some events with my own bus on film, and these are some of the things that I've been up to.
One of the first events of the year was at Twickenham Stadium. Now, this has become a bit of a regular for us, and it's always a huge success, and this time was no difference. Until I got back to the barn, that is, because by the time I'd parked the bus up, it was followed by a suspicious trail of some sort of fluid. Now, with the busy season right around the corner, I wasted no time in investigating what the problem was. It turns out I had a leaking brake pipe. Time to call in the expert. Lord Barrington has entered the building. If you have the right equipment and all the knowledge, that's how easy it is. Sadly, there is no break for 2355 because the next morning we are immediately off to the next event. But this one brings a whole new challenge. Our next destination is Penshurst Place, a local National Trust property with beautiful grounds. Now, they run an annual craft fair and we usually do the bar. This event has been a great success for us in the past and we're hoping that the weather will just about hold out so we can sell some drinks. Now, we manage all this, but on day 3, the heavens open and they do not close. The problem is, we're in a field, and when everybody starts to de-rig and leave, it soon turns into a muddy pit.
So because of the epic amount of rain, it is like an otter's pocket in here, wet. In a minute, I'm going to try and drive the bus out the muddiest field I've ever experienced. Luckily, there is a tractor on standby.
So it turns out that 2355 is quite a good off-road vehicle. Who'd have thought? And even though she is completely and utterly covered in mud, we make it back to the barn without any further issues.
Ever taken a Route Master bus off-road? Yeah, do it all the time, mate. It's easy, they're really good in the mud. They are not, trust me. Buses like flat, lovely tarmac, and that's about it. But I had the tractor right there as my backup, so I thought, I'm just gonna send it and see what happens. And apart from it being absolutely filthy, she made it all the way through. I was very proud of her, and we got back without a hitch. Anyway, for those of you that have been watching me for a while, you'll know that I'm about to go on tour with none other than the department store, Harrods. Now, I made a bit of a deal with them because they like to control their own social media, and I promised I wouldn't post anything up until the tour was complete. The tour is now complete, and this is how it went down.
After my very early morning in central London, driving past a Harrods department store all lit up in pink to mark the occasion, it is time for me and this now fully converted Enviro 400 to embark on an epic national tour. But what is this tour all about? Well, Harrods have a beauty department called H Beauty, and that brand has several separate stores across the country. It's been a great success, and there are rumours of more stores opening soon. So to increase their brand awareness, scout new locations, and engage with a new audience, H Beauty have teamed up with 6 of their most popular brands to create this beautiful tour bus. But just before we hit the road, the bus and I have been scheduled into one of the biggest photography studios London has to offer. H Beauty has invited a bunch of very popular social media characters to enjoy the full H Beauty bus experience and, more importantly, promote the upcoming tour.
And now for the inside of the bus. Guys, this is where it gets very impressive. There is a creative agency called Another A Story, and of course my friends at Raccoon together have created this perfect bus for Harrods. And Harrods will not accept anything other than perfection. And so they should. They're a household name, they are a premium brand, and everything they do is perfect. That of course has been a challenge in itself, but what the guys have come up with is very, very impressive. Now remember, a middle-aged male, I am not their target audience, but I can really appreciate and respect the amount of detail and thought that has gone into this build. Check it out.
The first few destinations on the tour whiz by at high speed, and everybody involved seems to be very happy. But it's not until I head to Chester that I have a minor hiccup. Well, I say minor, actually quite a major one.
I've got a coolant warning light on the dash, and she is going rather slow up the hill. Fingers crossed, no major issues. I'm going to pull up at the next services and top it up.
As I pour water into the bus, I see it coming out the bottom of it, roughly at the same speed. My day is about to go from bad to worse.
No, I've just made it worse. Excellent. What is that? Is that something we should worry about? No, that's part of it, right? Just wanted to double check because it didn't look right. What is it? That's a thing up in here. So, new hose and water going in. Let's hope I don't have to open this thing again. And now we're gonna go fire it up. What do you reckon, Neil? Do you reckon it'd be all right? All right. Right, new hose on, engine's been running for a few minutes, it's not leaking water, it leaked a little bit, but then we tightened it up even more, all good. I'm now going to hit the road, because I've got about 2 hours to make up, and fingers crossed, that is the last time I'm stopping till Chester.
To delay me even more, I hit bad traffic, and then sadly, a couple of hours up the road, the alarm starts going again. It gets worse, and I decide to stop just outside of Chester for a quick splash and dash. I do eventually reach the location with the bus in one piece, but I was very, very late. The next day, it is as if nothing ever happened. With a bit of sunshine and the beautiful buildings of Chester in the background, the weekend is a massive success, and we actually hit new records of people going through the H-Beauty bus. The coolant situation still exists with the bus, but it's definitely better than before, so I decide to manage it, and it makes it safely all the way to Newcastle. Event in Newcastle, it is decided to leave the bus up north and for us to travel up and down. This is to reduce wear and tear on the bus and also avoid potential issues en route. But there are still some issues.
So we've had a continuous coolant warning alarm in the cab for a few days now. It's been sort of intermittent, and we've been able to make good progress without it causing a major problem. I have checked on the engine regularly, and it all seems fine.
Despite everything seeming just fine, I decide to retighten and relocate all the hoses and clamps I can reach in the engine bay. And for the first time, we have a correct coolant level on the external gauge. But there is a whole new issue. And I've got to explain this because this bus was bought from a company and they had a high-speed, full-pressure fuel nozzle on it. So you could fill the whole tank up at the depot in like 2 minutes, 300 litres in 2 minutes. But of course, in the real world, petrol stations don't have those connectors. So we removed all that, and now you just use the normal fuel nozzle in a fuel station. But the problem with it is that the fuel filler neck on the bus is very, very short and angled. So when you put a normal fuel nozzle in it, the fuel splashes back and it clicks and stops. Now, to put this in perspective, it took me half an hour, 30 minutes, to put 60 pounds worth of diesel in the tank because it kept stopping, or you have to go really, really slowly and you get mega cramp in your hand. For me to fill the tank would take over 2 hours, so I can't live with this. So Rock and Roll Paul and I decided to take apart the cap and the nozzle that's on there to see if we can get a bit more of an angle with the fuel hose to get fuel in the bus. That's a bit tight. There we go. Please work, please work. There we go. Oh. It might be the
That's not having any of it.
So it still doesn't work. We're going to have to go to the other side and use a domestic pump. Pain in the arse is what that is.
So the HGV nozzles don't work. The fuel simply comes out too fast. So we have to use the domestic fuel nozzles that you use on your car. Now, all of this is fine, but there is a problem in England. In this country, every petrol station forecourt has a canopy above it. Now, you'd think that there was a standard height for all those canopies. Well, there isn't. They are all different height. Some of them fit the bus and others don't. So I have been forced to play a new game, and it's called Petrol Station Canopy Roulette. Luckily, the canopy we're at today is just high enough for the bus, and even though we got some very funny looks, I was able to do a very simple thing, and that is take fuel and put it in my bus.
Right, fuel cap's back on. Let's hit the road, baby.
From this point onwards, the journey becomes very pretty. But despite all of this, I'm still driving around in a bus about 300 miles away from home without a fuel gauge and no knowledge whether the next services has a canopy that'll fit me. You have gotta love life on the road.
The bus is in quite an epic location.
After Edinburgh, we leave the bus in coach parking and collect it the next week. But when we get there, we have a bit of a surprise.
I think we have a flat battery.
So annoyingly, we've got a flat battery. Not sure if the ignition was left on. I don't think it was, but when we flick switches, nothing happens. So we're going to see the boys here, see if they can give us a hand.
Luckily, a friendly mechanic next door lends us a jump pack and we are good to go.
Right, here we go again. All running and lovely. Let's get out of here. Interesting turn of events. We've been to scout the location. We're in Silverburn Shopping Centre here in Glasgow, and we've been to scout the location, and it is really tight. There's like little bollards everywhere, and we're actually sort of wondering whether it's even going to fit. So it's really interesting because thus far all the locations have been really straightforward, but this one is complicated.
With all the Harrods crew and all the staff of the shopping centre watching, Rock and Roll Paul and I managed to manoeuvre a big old bus into a spot where no bus has gone before. We get a standing ovation when we manage it, but we waste no time in building this entire rig once again for the last time. After a 2 a.m. finish setting up, we are back bright and early to continue making repairs on the bus. Repairs, you say? Well, this has been the biggest challenge of this tour. As I mentioned, Harrods, rightfully so, have extremely high standards, but they also want high volume of people through their bus.
Right, one done. Here come the next one.
And those two together can sometimes cause a bit of an issue. So we have been doing running repairs as we've gone along.
Working. Ready?
We are ready.
As I open the doors for the last time on what has been an epic tour, I'm so impressed with everybody involved that has worked so hard to make this thing look on point right from the start all the way through to the end. Glasgow, here we go.
From Glasgow to Edenbridge in a bus will take you 13 and a half hours, and I am now ready for my bed. Bye-bye. There you go, 6 weekends back-to-back on the road. What an epic tour it was. There's a couple of things I've got to mention. First of all, Raccoon would never send me out in a bus if they didn't think it was fit for purpose, and the reason why we had a few issues is because they've not actually owned that particular bus for a very long time. And that's what it's like on the road. You get random problems that you'd never foresee. You've just got to think of solutions on the spot and keep going. Also, what I've got to mention is that my video is very much from my point of view, and it sometimes looks like I'm out there by myself, sort of orchestrating this entire tour. That is not the case. In fact, there's like 30, 40 people involved in putting this thing on the road. And amongst those people, there are a couple of characters I've got to thank because they've been really great. First of all, my own team, Nick, who was on his hands and knees every morning scrubbing the floor in that bus. He was also our van driver. He was absolutely brilliant. And then there's Rock and Roll Paul, who with his big booming voice standing around the bus and me behind the wheel, we could park it in any spot. And also he has the ability to fix almost anything on the side of the road. So amazing characters to work with and to have on your side when you're doing this stuff. Then there's the creative agency, which is another A story. Their tour manager was called Soncha, and she totally got our vibe, and she was also an absolute pleasure to work with. Then there's all the guys from Raccoon who built this. Then there's all the guys from Harrods who came up with the concept. But my big hat goes off to the actual girls that were running the bus when it was open to the public. Their energy was 110% from the morning all the way through to the evening, and you could tell when the public was coming off the bus, they would just felt like they'd had a really cool experience. Also, their product knowledge was absolutely bar none superb, so professionals all around, super impressed. And my last thank you goes to someone who has been at home with my 2 young children whilst I have been gallivanting around the country in a pink bus. I'm sorry, darling, I'm back now. I shall help you. That's all we've got time for this time on Pete and his bus. I will see you next time on, guess what? Pete and his bus.
whilst editing my lovely time-lapse, I've found some really strange things. First of all, thanks, Paul. And secondly, this is quite worrying because I have no idea who these people are.